Welcome to Friday's edition of the Daily Expresso. I'm JJ Anisiobi, and this is Daily Express Associate Editor Sam Lister. It's been another mad week in Westminster and beyond. Cabinet Minister tax scandals, Farage's trip to the States, and the creator of Father Ted getting arrested for tweets. Well, today's episode is all about you, the Loyal Express reader, viewer, and listener. We've gone through all your comments and letters, and we're going to read some of them out and hopefully answer some of your questions. Sam, I believe you have trawled through the fan mail and some of the hate mail. And you've picked out the best comments.
More fan mail than hate mail, thankfully. But yeah, it's been great. We've had such good reaction to your interview with Nigel Farage. So really good comments on the YouTube, under the YouTube video. And then we've had lots of reaction as well online on our website. So plenty to go at.
Wonderful, wonderful. Every Friday, we want to make your comments front and centre of the programme. This is our chance to hear from the people who matter, which is you. Before we get into your comments, though, we first want to show the final part of our exclusive interview with Nigel Farage. We have been broadcasting it every day throughout this week. Here, in the final section, we spoke about his political inspirations, how he likes to relax, and the future of British pubs. I'm told you're a bit of a history buff, Nigel. Yeah. Is that true? Okay, so all the prime ministers we've ever had in the country, who's on your Mount Rushmore of prime ministers? But instead of Mount Rushmore, we're going to dig out the White Cliffs.
Well, I think Peel probably is very high up there. I think that what he did ruined his own political career, took his own party out of power for 22 years, but arguably opened Britain up to the world in a way that meant we could succeed with the Industrial Revolution, we could succeed with our incredible merchant navy, we could succeed with an empire based much more on trade than the military domination of the other European countries. I think Peel is a very heroic, brave, principled figure.
You going to say Tony Blair next?
In my lifetime, if we're going to go to my lifetime, there have been two genuine leaders, Margaret Thatcher and Tony Blair. And they both led for the same reason. They both said, this is where we're going, this is why we're going there, and we invite you to join us. And both of them did that. And Blair did that. And I disagree fundamentally with a lot of what Tony Blair did. I think the Human Rights Act was a catastrophe that's changed, so much of the way we understand the world. Kids in the playground, right? 8-year-olds having a fight in the playground years ago. One would say to the other, it's a free country. I can do what I like. Now, 8-year-olds squabbling in the playground. One says to the other, I know my rights. It's a fundamental change that's occurred. But Blair had great leadership qualities, incredible orator. He could stand up without notes, look into a camera. Thatcher, not quite as natural as Blair, but undoubtedly very powerful. And you never doubted when she spoke that she believed what she believed in. And they're the two that stand out for me, of having genuine leadership qualities. None of the others have.
Okay. What's something that our viewers won't know about you?
That I'm teetotal. That it's all a complete joke. I've never had a pint of beer in my life. It's not true. It's not true. It's not April the 1st. I think people, I don't think people realise that I'm perhaps a bit more thoughtful.
Oh, yeah.
The image that everyone likes to portray is, I'm always laughing my head off and having enormous fun, and I'm at Cheltenham getting the bookmaker's money, or I'm in the pub, or it's not quite as much fun as people think. I do actually spend quite a lot of time thinking quietly about things. And I'd say this to you, I believe I care more than anyone about the future of the country, about where we're going. It really is deep in there. And that's why I came out of retirement last year and came back into politics.
How does Nigel Farage relax?
Well, he relaxes by not having to dress up. He relaxes by doing a bit of gardening.
Well, what do you wear at home when you're not dressed up? I imagine you're always in suits.
Rags, absolute rags.
Yeah, do you have a tracksuit?
No, I don't have a tracksuit, but I have sort of cords with holes in them. I like to do a bit of gardening. I like to do a little bit of reading, not that much because of time. I like to walk. That's really, really important. Got to get some. Well, you've got to get some exercise. I've managed reasonably to keep my weight down over the years, which, despite liking a drink, it means you have to exercise a bit.
Yeah.
I like fishing. I enjoy that very much. I enjoy the odd day watching cricket.
Okay.
Test cricket in particular. There's so many things in history. I didn't get a chance much, but I used to be a regular visitor to France. and go and visit historic sites and walk old battlefields and stuff like that. I mean, look, if I was retired tomorrow, I've got more than enough hobbies to fill my days. So lots of things I enjoy and really love outside of work and politics.
Well, I know you love pubs. For me, an ideal characteristic of a pub, have margaritas on tap. Gotta have that. Yeah. And also a room where there's just men.
Well, that used to be what it was like. No, I just think, I think the pubs that have got it right have separated drinking and eating. If there's a drinking area and there's an eating area separate, it can still work as a pub. Unfortunately, the smoking ban has closed so many pubs down and made it very, very difficult. Some pubs have managed to adapt with outdoor areas. No, the pub's in real trouble, and it's very, very difficult for them to get by. Habits have changed, and I think that the prolonged COVID lockdowns have broken the pub habit for millions of people, and it's a great shame because every pub's a parliament. That's where we discuss, is the vicar a Marxist, or whatever it may be, I mourn as they close.
Well, I've had a walk around your headquarters here. Yeah. I don't see one single St. George flag. What's going on?
Well, we're not having that. This is a work environment. I can see a Union Jack from here. There you go. There you go. And no, it's amazing, isn't it? All over the country, these flags are going up. It's quite incredible. Up on flagpoles and in windows, and it's Union Jacks, it's Cross St. George's. And this is a real moment, where people are saying two fingers. Stop calling us far right. Stop patronising us. Stop talking down to us. The vast majority of us that are doing this are decent, accepting, real people. It's quite a moment.
But should they be doing it on public land? And
well, should they be doing things that can be classed as vandalism? Probably not.
Yeah.
All right. Let's be clear about that. But the general sentiment of wanting to stick two fingers up to Westminster, I thoroughly approve of.
Okay. Donald Trump says he has to watch Fox and Friends every day to keep his thing on the pulse. Will you be watching the Daily Expresso every day?
I promise I will watch this episode. I promise I'll try and watch. But I don't have a daily routine. Okay. I don't have a get up at this, do that, go to work. I'm traveling all over the country, and as leader of this party, as a campaigner, there is no regular pattern to my life. But I wish you luck with it.
Thank you very much. Nigel Farage, thanks very much. So he didn't exactly answer my question about the dream pub, did he? And I thought the kind of guy that he seems to be on TV, he would have loved me saying a room with just men. And he said, well, that's how it used to be.
I mean, JJ, what kind of pub has no women in? Why would Nigel Farage want to go to a pub with no women in? I mean, honestly, that sounds dreadful. And a pub with margarita on tap. What kind of insanity is that?
Delicious, delicious. What's your dream features for a pub then?
Well, women in it. For a start.
Squawking. No thanks. What else?
Definitely not margarita on tap.
No.
I don't like tellies in pubs.
Why not? Well, when am I going to watch the sport?
Well, I don't know. But go to a sports bar, not to a pub. I think there should be plenty of regulars at the bar, sharing tales, proper, men drinking bitter, women drinking Chardonnay. Let's go old school if we're going to go down that road.
I would also ban pale ales.
Why?
I just think they're a bit soft, aren't they? It's like, oh, this is Dalston pale ale and this one's made with mangoes and whatever. No, that's not real beer.
Says the margarita drinker.
Vodka, that is. It's basically just vodka. Vodka and citrus. Were you surprised his answer about his Mount Rushmore? Tony Blair, he spoke glowingly about Blair.
No, do you know what? I wasn't actually. I thought it was really interesting because Nigel Farage is a leader and there aren't that many around in Westminster. And he just has those innate qualities and leaders recognise other leaders. And although clearly they don't think the same thing, I think he admires those qualities. You can see that. And I think he probably will have studied those qualities. What I thought was really interesting was he said he can speak without an auto, Tony Blair can speak without an auto cue. Nigel Farage, I have been watching Nigel Farage for many, many years, and he can speak off the cuff for an hour, easy. And the reason he can do that is because he believes what he's saying, and he said these things time and time again. Now, the many politicians nowadays struggle because they're actually saying things they don't believe.
Right.
It doesn't come from the heart. They're following the lines to take from whatever party press office they kind of have been instructed by. And actually, they're so worried about focus groups. They're so worried about getting into Twitter storms. And actually, if they just had a bit of leadership, they'd go a lot further. But let's be fair. It is quite a rare quality. There aren't that many people who have it. It's not a party political thing. It is about you as a character, you as a person. So I wasn't surprised, but it was interesting.
But you're right about the auto cue. I've done lots of TV, and I did a show with Farage before, and he didn't have any auto cue. No. He just looks at the camera and speaks, and I was slightly amazed by that quality. Now, I was disappointed that he said he doesn't wear tracksuits at home, hoodies and gilets, but he wears rags and corduroy trousers, and he likes to chill by gardening, watching Test cricket. Pretty normal hobbies, I suppose.
I think that's good. He sounds like a Daily Express reader, which I know he is. So gardening, cricket, it's all very, very wholesome stuff. And I think actually, having worked in Westminster for more years than I would care to admit to, what you do realise is if you don't have something like that in your outside life, you will quickly crack up or just drop down dead. It's a culture of long hours, of there is less booze around than there used to be, but it is still quite boozy. A lot of lunches, a lot of pressure, a lot of stress, a lot of public scrutiny. And so if you don't have something to go home to at the weekends and take your mind off it, you will quickly burn out. So I think he clearly has the balance right in his life.
Okay. It's been a great first week on the Daily Expresso, and we've been thrilled to see so many great comments from our viewers. One that caught my eye was this one, very kind, especially the use of one specific word. This is what they said. I really enjoyed this. JJ, even though is a lefty, is an old school reasonable lefty and a pleasure to watch. Belinda's a star. Keep the good work up. Now, admittedly, I am a lefty. I am. I know you say I'm not.
Are you really? You're not. You're the most right-wing person I've ever met. Honestly, I don't know why we're keeping up this pretense.
Because generally, I am left-leaning.
You're not.
Yeah, I'm tough on. I'm like Tony Blair, tough on crime, tough on the
causes of crime.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But on social issues, I think generally I'm quite left-leaning.
No, I've seen no evidence of this. I mean, you're very pro-mandatory castration for paedophiles, which I'm sure many of our viewers will agree with.
Yes.
But that's not a left-wing position, JJ. You've just got to come to terms with it.
It's just that I'm from the position of common sense. That's all it is.
Exactly.
If you are a sex offender, castration. That is it. That simple. If that makes me not left, then I guess I'm not left. But I think some lefties would agree with me on that, at least.
I think you just need to kind of lean into it now.
Lean into it more. Okay.
I had one that I wanted to read to you, actually.
Oh, yeah?
Which is from Phil, retired of Guildford. If you're there, Phil, hi. Phil is a loyal Express follower. He's followed. I think he's followed you for many years.
Yeah.
I know he's interacted with me for quite some time. He said, after the first show, a great first outing, JJ and Belinda. I have to say, JJ, I thought your pocket square was a bit sudden. Not up to your usual sartorial standards. Keep up the good work. So, fashion critique there.
Yeah. There's an Italian style called, I think it's sprezzatura, where you have one part of your outfit that is deliberately messy and it's supposed to look effortless.
Oh, okay.
That's what I was going for. The extra large pocket squares draped a little
just
long.
Looks a bit messy, actually.
Just looks messy.
Yeah.
Looks messy. Not
we can rectify that for next week, Phil. I'm sure we can get that sorted.
Sorry, Phil. Well, we want to hear your opinions on the biggest news of the week and the biggest thing we read on this week, which, of course, was our interview with Nigel Farage. There was a lot of conjecture from both sides of the coin. This one, from one of our readers, caught my eye. Farage will never be PM. Beyond the fact he is completely incapable of leading and delivering at that level, there is no rag and bone reform will ever overcome the structural barrier that is first past the post. Reform is a reckless vanity project to stroke the ego of an inadequate little man. Scathing. But I do hear these kind of comments about Farage often.
Well, look, he's divisive, isn't he? People love him or loathe him.
Mm-hmm.
I think he doesn't mind that because at least people have an opinion about him. Do people have an opinion about Ed Davey, the Lib Dem leader? No. So, I think he accepts that he is divisive. Mm-hmm. But what I think he understands is that the people who are behind him are really behind him.
Do you seriously think, I know I started this interview with Farage at the start of the week saying, am I talking to the next Prime Minister? Do you seriously think Reform could actually become the next government?
Do you know what? Obviously, I went down to Reform's offices with you on Monday for the interview.
Yeah.
And I, as I say, working in Westminster as I did in my previous job, I followed Farage and Reform, UKIP, Brexit Party and their fortunes for many, many years. And I am absolutely staggered by how much more professional and focused this operation is to the previous ones. I mean, they've had like a solid support base for quite some time. Obviously, UKIP, I think they got about 4 million in the general election back in the day, but it didn't translate into any MPs. They are much more laser focused now. They've clearly got some financial support because it's quite a whizzy office, wasn't it? I mean, they had that whole floor. They've got a studio. They've got a press conference room.
Yeah.
There's quite a lot of money obviously flowing into them. And when this goes out, I will be in Birmingham for the Reform Party conference. Mm-hmm. So what I've already noticed is that they have an enormous amount of interest from lots and lots of different organisations this year. So that there are think tanks putting on panel events. There are media organisations doing events. We'll be doing our own. We're doing a big pub quiz down at the Reform Conference. So if anybody's watching this and they're there, come down and say hello. But, you know, last year, I attended last year's conference and there was no fringe on the conference. There were no businesses there. There were no think tanks there. It was all just on the main stage. This year is a very, very different beast. They have got a big amount of interest from people and organisations out there. So I think it's going to be very, very different on a very, very different scale from last year.
Is there growing support for Reform less about people liking Reform and more about people thinking the Tories were terrible? Keir Starmer was supposed to be our saviour. He's been horrendous. Labour have lied to us. So is it more the blame lies with other parties, or do you think it's more a case of, oh no, this is the Messiah now who's going to lead the country back to greatness?
I think it's a bit of both. I think people feel very frustrated with the way the country has been run over decades now, actually. It feels whatever you vote for, you get the same. Mm-hmm. So people voted for the Conservatives, but it didn't feel that much different from the end of the Blair government. They voted for Brexit, but the immigration didn't stop. It actually got worse. And I think actually then you get the Labour government. People are clearly very fed up with the Conservatives. You get a Labour government. Well, look at the disastrous first year. It's been absolutely appalling.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, clearly the Conservatives and the Labour Party are not covering themselves in glory. That is for sure. But also, people would not turn to Reform if they didn't like what they had to say. There are other parties out there. They could go to the Greens. They could go to Ed Davey and the Lib Dems. They're not.
The Monster Raven Union Party.
Yeah. So, you know, there's a gap on the right, isn't there?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think, as you said, as you described yourself, JJ, earlier, common sense. There is an absolute desire for a bit of common sense.
Yeah.
People can see really idiotic things happening and they cannot understand why our government cannot stop them.
Yeah.
And so Farage is promising to sort those problems out. Now, when he gets into government, or when and if he gets into government, we will see if he can deliver on those promises. But he is actually saying the things people want to hear. And actually, they've not heard those things for a long time.
I still think this first past the post is going to stop Reform from ever getting into power. I think Labour may have to do a deal with the Lib Dems to rule together, or maybe the Greens. I don't think so. Maybe it'll be Labour and Lib Dems ruling together. But I think as long as we keep our system as first past the post, I can't see any of the parties getting in.
I think if you look at the last election result, we know that if you look at overall how many adults could have voted in this country, it was something like only 2 in 10 backed Starmer. Mm-hmm. Nobody wanted him in, really. It was a hold your nose election. If you look at the results, I think it was about 80, maybe it was even up to 100 seats. Reform were in second place. You know, that's a lot of seats. If Labour lose a few hundred votes in those seats are going to Reform, and you can see how it happens. I mean, it would be seismic. It would be seismic, but it is really not unfeasible now.
Now, in what is shaping up to be one of the biggest Westminster scandals of the year, Angela Rayner's career has been on the brink since Wednesday as it emerged that she had underpaid stamp duty on her seafront flat in Hove, East Sussex. This has left many of our viewers and readers incandescent, and here are some examples that show their contempt. Facebook, we have June Hiscott saying, mistake or not, her position is untenable. Lily Delaney said she is the housing minister who underpaid housing tax. No nuance will change that. She has to go. One reader was slightly more forgiving. Gurdip Singh said, investigate properly before condemning her. We don't know what her situation is. Well, I think those are fair points. I'm not sure the majority of our listeners, viewers and readers would agree with Gurdip Singh there.
I just think it's staggering. I mean, it's just, it is hypocrisy, but it's also just ineptitude. I mean, this is a woman who went through a housing scandal only 18 months ago. So surely if you're in that position, you would be absolutely all over the details of this. You would be squeaky clean.
Yeah.
Everything about it is bad for her. You know, she's either useless or she's corrupt. You know, which one of those is a good option? Neither. So I think and also I think there was a gleefulness with which Labour, and particularly Angela Rayner, attacked the Tories over the last 4 years for their many, let's be clear, many and varied scandals. There were plenty to go at. But there was a gleefulness about Angela Rayner with that. She was always on social media. Jeremy Hunt, Jeremy Hunt's rich. In case you didn't notice, she was always pointing out how rich he was. Let's not forget that Rishi Sunak's wife, who really did not, she's never sought any public profile. She does a lot of work in the background for charities. Yes, she's an incredibly wealthy woman. We all know that. Mm-hmm. But they loved pointing out how rich she was.
Yeah.
She followed all the rules when it came to her non-dom tax status. But it didn't matter that she'd followed the rules. They just went for her. They went for being rich. Was she a fair target? No. Mm-hmm. And so I just think I have no sympathy for Angela Rayner on this. I have no sympathy for Labour. And I think actually Tony Blair pointed this out in his book. He said, be careful about attacking the government when you're in opposition, because no party is scandal free. It will bounce back on you. And that's exactly what we're seeing now. Read what you say.
Yeah, Blair was right. He's my favourite politician of all time, Tony Blair. And he did say...
He's not a lefty either, so...
Naturally, the week Labour have had has resulted in no shortage of debate on our comment section about the overall state of the government. Many of you have weighed in with your thoughts on their overall direction. This comment, very, very good. Who cares who leads Labour into the next election? There isn't one of them who is fit to lead this country. Whoever is leading the party, they will be kicked out come the next election. I just hope that the next party to run the country doesn't end up carrying the can for the irretrievable mess Labour have left the country in. Labour have sown the wind. I would say that I think Wes Streeting could be a good leader. I think he could.
Because he's a Blairite.
Yes. I think Wes Streeting would be a decent politician. A decent prime minister. He seems to speak honestly. He seems to care what he thinks. He cares about what he says. And yeah, I think he's more of a straight shooter than a lot of the other Labour MPs. You're not no. You're going to tell me wrong. Go on then.
No, I don't. I'm sure he's. I mean, I just don't think he's going to keep his seat, JJ. He's got a majority of 500, so I wouldn't pin your hopes on him. Yeah. Unless he does a chicken run, of course, find his little safe seat for himself somewhere.
Yeah. But
he's not going to be around otherwise.
No, you don't think so?
No.
So is there anyone you would say in the Labour Party who could be the next
come on,
Minister?
You're asking the wrong person here. Have you seen them? Not one of them's ever run anything or done anything.
Well, then what does Labour need to do to get back on course? What can Starmer possibly do?
Call an election.
If he calls an election today,
they'll be out tomorrow.
Yeah,
so.
they are out. They are certainly out.
Yeah.
But so is there nothing? There's nothing they can do now. Because that's how I felt with the Tories. I was like, well, okay, you sacked Bojo, you brought in Sunak, you brought in Truss. Nothing you do is going to stop us from voting you guys out of the next election. Is that where we're at now for Labour?
Yeah. It started badly, tailed off in the middle, and the less said about the end, the better. I think it's one of those, isn't it?
Yeah. What was their biggest mistake? For me, I think it's attacking the pensioners.
Winter fuel. 3 weeks into power, they went for the pensioners.
Yeah.
It was vindictive, and also it was financially illiterate. So it was completely pointless. But they thought pensioners voted Tory so they could save a few billion. And how badly that backfired, and they've never ever recovered. Also, don't forget, we've had all the sleaze scandals, all the freebie tickets, all the freebie clothes. They can't dress themselves, and all that kind of stuff. So, like, but actually, that said, those things are recoverable if you can deliver growth, which is what they promised. They haven't delivered growth. They've got very little prospect of delivering growth. If they can suddenly turn around the economy, great, everyone will forget everything. 4 years' time, all of this will be forgotten. But there's very little prospect of that at the moment.
I think there's one way Starmer can save himself now, right? He rips up the cabinet and he says, like Nigel Farage suggested, I'm just going to put in people who I think are the best at their individual sections. So for business secretary, it's going to be Alan Sugar and Richard Branson. They're going to be leading that department, helping small businesses.
They're people who've made money. They don't like that, JJ.
But this is how they can
They're
save
like public
themselves.
sector people.
They can bring in Rees-Mogg to be in charge of education or whatever. If he did that, I know it sounds radical, and of course it will never happen. But if he opened up and said, the best people for the job aren't actually just in my party. They're all over the country. I'm going to get in different people. And I bring in Nigel Farage to be the ambassador to the United States. I think people might turn around and say, "Okay."
They just had a reset. They've just had a reset this week.
Yeah, barely anything moved.
Well, exactly. That's the point. They brought in Darren. Darren's not saving anything.
No,
is he?
He's not.
And then they've brought in a load of back office people into the Treasury who are former colleagues of Torsten Bell, the man who is writing the budget. We all need to be terrified about that. He is a man who wants to tax everything you've ever earned or saved or owned. So he's brought in all his mates. He's got backup. This is not a government who can bring in anyone of any decency or quality or vision or anything. They just bring in people who want to raise taxes. So, I wouldn't pin your hopes on that, JJ.
Okay, well, Storm, if you're watching, Sam Lister says you're done for, mate. Done for. Sam, I look forward to hearing from you next week after you've been at the Reform Conference.
Brilliant. I look forward to hearing from the viewers, listeners, readers. That's what we want, isn't it?
That is. So make sure you leave your comments below. Go on the website, comment underneath the stories. Write in letters. Old school, I prefer that. Send us a letter in, first class post. But for now, the caffeine has worn off. That is all we've got time for. But please keep on asking those questions. And hit the like, hit the subscribe button. Let us know who you want on the show and tell us what stories you want us to cover in more detail. Thank you for watching the Daily Expresso. Join us again on Monday, where I'll be joined by the wonderful Belinda DeLucy as we dissect another week's news agenda. Bye-bye.